For today's second lesson, the video will be posted here. We're going to find the missing leg of a right triangle. So in the previous video, we found the missing hypotenuse. So the first thing that we have to make sure your name's up here in the right-hand corner. And remember that right triangles, the Pythagorean theorem says that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And so if we continue along that path, we go through and label our sides. And so this one's already titled B, this one's A, and I know that this one across from the right angle is always C. So I plug those numbers in. For A, it says 9, so it would be 9 squared plus B squared, and it equals 15 squared. And so for me, all I do is I use the calculator and then I fall back on my training from equations. So the first thing I would do is 9 squared. And so that tells me 81. The plus b squared drops down. And then I want to know what 15 squared is. So I go back to the calculator and I do 15 squared, which is 225. I can't do b squared yet, so I'm going to subtract 81 from both sides. And I would simply use a calculator, but I know that these are going to cross out. B squared drops down. Equal sign drops down. And then I would do 225 minus 81, and it tells me 144. And then I'm going to find the square root of both sides. The square root of b squared is simply b. And then we go back to our calculator and we type in the square root of 144, which is 12. So here I would write 12. And then I would type in 12 for my answer and click submit. We're going to start with a fresh question. And so the same process over. This one's labeled A, so I'm going to label this one B. I know that this one's C. I know that C is always across from the right angle. So whichever one is across from the right angle is going to be C. So again, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And so then I just plug in what numbers I've got for my label. So this says that A is just simply A, so A squared stays A. This would be B, so it's plus 4 squared. This is C, which is 5, so it would be 5 squared. You can use the calculator if you want, but I know that A squared, I want to figure out what the squares are first. So I know A squared is simply going to stay A squared. I can use a calculator, but 4 times 4 is 16, so it's going to be plus 16. And then the same thing here, 5 squared is going to be 5 times 5, which is 25. And then I'm going to subtract 16 so I can get A by itself. But if I subtract 16 on this side, I have to do it on the other side of the equal sign. A squared drops down. These cancel. Equal sign drops down. 25 minus 16 is 9. And then I want to find the square root. And so A is going to be what the square root of A squared is. Equal sign drops down. And then I can go to the calculator and type in square root of 9, but I know it's 3. So then I would just simply go back to and type in 3. Click submit. Sometimes it's going to ask you to round to the nearest tenth. It doesn't always do that. A lot of times it's going to come out to be a perfectly whole number. So same thing here. This one's labeled B. That means that this one has to be A. And then always the one across from the right angle is C. And so then I plug that in. A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. Well, according to what I wrote, A is 12. So I would do 12 squared plus B squared, because I don't know what it is equal to 20 squared. Again, you can just simply use the calculator for your squares, but 12 squared is 144. B squared is going to stay B squared. 20 squared is 400, but you can use the calculator if you're not sure what the square is. And so we'll type it in. 20 squared is 400. And then my next step is to subtract 144 from both sides. So those will cancel. B squared drops down. Equal sign drops down. Again, you can use the calculator if you want. 400 minus 144 is 256. Then we want to find the square root of both sides. The square root of B squared is simply B. And then the square root of 256, we can use a calculator, and we can see that it is 16. And so then I would type in 16 here. Again, we're going to start the process all over for a new question. But if you have questions, feel free to email me. These problems are the same all the way throughout. 80's an A. Anything above that's extra credit. Again, if you have questions, feel free to email me.